Welcome to the Outsmart Burnout Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Zaria Rubin, a functional medicine doctor, an international speaker, and a burnout badass because I've been there myself. After walking away from my own high-stress medical career, I discovered how to break free from burnout to reclaim my passion, purpose, and joy. And now I'm here to help you do the same. From science-backed tips to time-saving hacks, and hopefully some aha moments that just might change your life. Today's guest is a powerhouse in the world of personal transformation and nervous system healing. Dr. Kelly Kessler is a licensed physical therapist, transformation coach, host of the globally ranked podcast Rewiring Health, and the founder of Optimal You Health and Wellness. She's also a mom of two and someone who deeply understands the hidden toll that perfectionism, people-pleasing, and chronic stress can take, especially on high-achieving women. Dr. Kelly blends her clinical expertise with trauma-informed tools like nervous system regulation and subconscious reprogramming to help women stop giving up on themselves and start honoring their worth, energy, and inner peace. If you've been stuck in survival mode and living by everyone else's rules and carrying the physical weight of all of that stress, you're going to get so much out of this conversation. And I personally cannot wait to dive in. So welcome, Dr. Kelly, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to this.
Yeah, I feel like what you have to offer and your philosophy and mindset is going to be so important for our listeners. I think we're going to cover some topics that maybe we haven't even thought about and introduce some new ideas, which always helps to frame the perspective of what is burnout, where does it come from, and what can we do to address it? So maybe tell us a little bit more about your story. So you are a physiotherapist by training. And then how did you move into this space, into subconscious reprogramming, nervous system, rewiring, and all of that stuff? Because I don't remember learning all of this in medical school, and I doubt you learned it in physiotherapy school either, right?
No, absolutely not. And this was never like, the whole long-term goal. It's just like through my own healing journey, I found this, and it really became where I recognized so many patterns in myself, like in hindsight now, but I see how many things that I was doing that I was just living in autopilot, going through the motions, going through all the things that I thought were expected of me, and that if I achieve all these things, then I'll be happy. And so I literally did all the things that I thought were like what I was supposed to do. Went to school and then got my bachelor's. Didn't really feel fulfilled after that. So I said, well, of course I'm going to need more school then, because that's got to be the answer. So I go get my master's.
That was my answer to everything. More school.
100%. Yes, I got my master's. I was like, well, I guess that wasn't enough. So maybe I should go back. So I went back, got my doctorate in PT. And I was like, well, finally, this has got to be it, because I mean, how much more can I do? And I'm in my early 30s working as a physical therapist, so unfulfilled, so exhausted, so drained. So I felt like not respected. And I think because I wasn't respecting myself in the process. And I realized that in hindsight, but doing all the things, and I'm like, okay, I just spent the last decade of my life, here I am, and I still don't feel the way I want to feel. And I remember this really pivotal moment. I had a 9-month-old son, and I was working full time as a physical therapist, driving an hour to work, driving all the way where I was going to people's homes to treat them. So I was driving then. And I was also working part time as an adjunct professor at the same time, while raising the son, while also working as a general contractor for our house. My husband and I were building our house at the same time. I mean, it was the absolute pure chaos. And on the outside, if you saw me, you're like, wow, she's holding it together. She's got it all together. But internally, I was struggling. I was struggling so bad. And this moment happened where I ended up getting furloughed from my job. And I was just sitting there, and everything just came to a screeching halt. And I'm looking at my 9-month-old son. I'm like, where have I been? I haven't been here. I'm physically here. I don't even remember the last 9 months. And I'm like, these are the most precious moments, and I have not been here. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I had no idea how to live differently, but I knew I just would not live like that anymore. I had lived like that for much of my life. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I'm exhausted. And it was really that moment, I'm choosing something different.
It's very powerful. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And I feel like this is a story that I know very well from my own personal experience. And it's something that I keep hearing from women. And that is that we keep seeking validation, approval, fulfillment in all of these external ways. So we're really smart and we get rewarded for that in school, and we keep striving and we keep achieving and getting all the gold stars and getting all the pieces of paper and the degrees and the letters after our name. And it's piling up. And like you said, from the outside, it looks like we have it all and we have it all together. I mean, you had the husband and the kiddo and everything. So I didn't have that, but I had this super successful career. And yet I was very unhappy, very unfulfilled. And there was this disconnect or this misalignment between probably who I really was and who I was trying to be, and all of the external obligations and expectations that I was trying to meet. And that didn't work. And then this notion of like, why do we try so hard to look like we have it all together
Mhm.
from the outside when on the inside we're falling apart and we don't stop? We don't ask for help. We don't acknowledge it. We just keep going, keep going, keep going. And how do we really help other women not to fall into this trap and have their wake up call maybe come sooner or maybe not come from something super intense or tragic or a personal medical issue or a family issue or looking at your baby and saying, "Oh my goodness, like
Yeah.
where have I been?" So I think this is so important, this
Mhm.
conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, and unfortunately for me, I think I just had to go through enough pain that that was going to be the moment, because for me, I'm like, I can handle it. I've got it. I can take care of everything. Like I'm unrelenting on myself. And I was very self-critical, and I'd be like, okay, you're not doing enough to keep going, like just like a workhorse on myself. So like for me, I had to get to that point of pain. And for me, I also experienced chronic back pain. So it not only
Mm.
manifested emotionally and mentally, but it was also physically. I was experiencing chronic back pain in my
And you're a physiotherapist.
and ironically, I had the chronic back pain before I became a physical therapist. Went to
Oh my
school
god.
saying, "Okay, cool, now I can fix myself." Got out and I couldn't even help myself because there was so much, it was so deeply rooted in
Yeah.
the emotions. It wasn't about the physical aspects, it's that my emotional aspects were manifesting physically, and that's what was coming out.
Tell us more about that, because I think that is something that is maybe under recognized, that we validate physical issues. You've
Mhm.
got pain, you've got this medical issue, and we don't really validate emotion as much. But
100%.
what you're saying is that all of these pent up emotions or all of these intense emotions, when they have nowhere to go and they're stored in the body, they can show up as back pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my experience. And again, I think I had to go through it to realize that. But like I said, I came out as a physical therapist. I'm like, okay, I've had this chronic back pain for years. I finally have the tools, I have the knowledge, I can help myself. And so I, put myself through the regimen, and I'd feel a little bit better temporarily. It would come right back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's no long-term fix. Like, and before I became a physical therapist, I went to practitioners. They're like, your L4, L5 is half the disc height of what it should be for your age. Like it's only going to progress and get worse. So I had this whole mentality of like, I'm
Mm,
doomed. Like
yeah.
I'm young and this is the rest of my life and I enjoy athletics and everything. And so I really felt, before I realized all this, like this is how it's going to be. Like it's only going to get worse. And so what really became that wake up call is like I said, I had that moment of like, I need to change something. And I was always like, on my comfort zone is like go, 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 go. But I realized like I've got to slow down. I've got to like take a few moments. So I just started with some breath work, started to just tune into my body, slow it down, do some yoga. Like it was really just tuning back into myself because I was so disconnected. And it took a while, but as I started doing that, I realized how many things I had just shoved down for years, all these emotions of
Mm.
like I was guilt driven. Everything I did was out of guilt or to avoid shame. So I was just trying to prove myself to not feel this sense of guilt, like with a sense of like I'm not enough. And I started uncovering this as I was going through that of like, my gosh, I am driven by fear, guilt, and shame. Like this was not out of love for myself.
Trifecta. Yeah.
Yeah, like there was no love for myself of why I was working so hard and exercising. Everything was just out of like you're not enough. Keep going harder. You're not going to you're never going to be enough. And if you strive a little bit harder, you would actually be enough. And these were the things that I was telling myself. And I just had this revelation of like, oh my gosh, this is the driving force. This is what's been my dialogue, my feelings for so long. And really just uncovering that, it was amazing because just working through that, understanding that, that's when I started to see some release in the back pain. It was like I had this wake up of like, this is why I've been feeling the way I'm feeling. And it just was coming out differently. Like I had experienced an eating disorder in my early 20s. I was overworking. I had the chronic back pain. It was showing up in so many ways. But the driving force and theme was this, living out of scarcity, fear, guilt, shame, these lower emotions that I was holding on to and all that.
Wow. That's really powerful. I think a lot of women, we are driven that way. And whether it comes from things that happened to us in our early childhood, family dynamics, trauma, I mean, it's got to come from somewhere, right? And then of course, all of the societal expectations, inequities, patriarchy, all of that is heaped on us. So it's a multifactorial sort of scenario that creates all of this guilt and shame and fear that you're talking about. And I think it's so common that women have these burdens and we don't know, we don't realize, and we channel it. And if you channel it into something very acceptable, like working really hard and being really successful, no one's going to question it.
And it's supported. People praise it. So it
Right.
becomes this,
You're rewarded for it.
yeah. Yep, yeah, financially, or people are like, "Oh my gosh, look how successful you are. Look at you.
Yeah.
Your life must be great." And so you're like, "Okay, well, they're seeing it." And especially if you're looking for external validation, you don't have any internal validation. You're like, "Well, I'm getting the external validation." So that then just keeps the cycle going.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about this external versus internal validation. You talk about something that's like self-abandonment. And yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that and maybe how women could start thinking about this and how we could start recognizing it in ourselves and maybe give us some examples.
Yeah, so self-abandonment is really when you sacrifice or suppress your own needs, wants, desires, speech, whatever feels just right for you, what's aligned with you, in order to get that acceptance, that praise, that feeling of belonging, quote belonging, even though it's not true belonging, but you are literally just suppressing the essence of yourself to then fit into the expectations of others or what others demand of you or what society demands of you. So you are completely sacrificing all that is true to you. And we do this so much that we start to lose what is my truth? Who am I actually without the story of what I've created around me? So, for me, if I'm not a physical therapist, who am I? If I'm not a student, who am I? And so you do this for so long and so unconsciously that you literally start to lose the essence of yourself and then you
Girl,
get
you're
into
speaking my language because I had that same revelation and that
yeah.
same sort of confrontation with if I'm not practicing medicine, if I'm not a doctor,
Yeah.
who even am I? Do I exist as a person?
Mhm.
Because my identity was so wrapped up in my job. It wasn't a job, it was
Mhm.
a calling, and it was like who I was as a human being.
Yeah.
It was really hard to separate and extricate myself and create and, well, rediscover who I really was. And so, yeah, I think this is really powerful. And it also kind of relates to, I think, another concept that maybe folks are more familiar with than self abandonment, which is people pleasing.
100%.
So
Yeah.
tell us how those are related.
Yeah, I mean, it goes, kind of like abandonment is like that umbrella term for like people pleasing. So people pleasing is just one aspect of it where
Yeah, one manifestation.
yeah, 100%. And that very much is how I've lived most of my life too. Is just that people pleaser of like, I would get that praise again. She gets along with everybody, so she's
She's
so
so
easygoing.
she's
Like
fun.
yes, and then meanwhile, I'm, like, suffering inside behind closed doors just to accommodate everybody, but, like and I take full responsibility of that because in my world, I believed that everybody else's needs were more important than my own, that what somebody said was they must know better than me, so I'll just, shut up and not say anything. They must know better than me, and it would literally I relinquished all my own inner power to listen to others, to make sure others are okay. If the peace was kept outside myself, then I'll just deal with whatever I have to internally just to keep it happy outside myself.
Mm,
And so that's so much of the aspects in which I live day in and day out, but it doesn't come without a cost. And this is what I didn't realize that, like, yeah, I can be that nice person, accommodating and bend over backward at work, and I'll be the person, the go-to person, I'll be the good girl, but that all comes with a cost. And this is what I didn't realize, and that internal suffering that I'm silently suffering with a smile on my face is this part of me that felt like I'm dying inside. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't worth it anymore. But yet it feels like a trap because you're like, okay, if I stop doing this, what happens? Like, what happens to that external world,
it's
to the people
scary.
that got used to you behaving that way? It's
Yeah.
very challenging.
Something you just said earlier reminds me of, we touched on this in another episode with
Yeah.
another fantastic guest that I had, about sacrificing your own peace to keep the peace with
Mhm.
others.
100%. Yeah, and that's really scary because a lot of times these relationships are people that are close to you. You know, it can be family, it can be friends, and they get just used to you being the one who bends over backwards, or you being the one who's accommodating, or you not speaking your truth, and then it seems like everything's happy and it's all working. But I mean, I've had this experience personally where I've learned to use my voice and I've spoken up for myself and I've aligned to my values, and my outside world unraveled. I've lost significant relationships the minute I started coming home to myself.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that when you actually start to figure out who you are and you start behaving like your true self, it's going to be a shock to the people who are much more comfortable with you the
Yeah,
way you used to be. And
absolutely.
yes, you may lose some friendships and some
Mhm.
relationships, and that's okay. It's not ideal, but if people are not willing to accept the new you or be open to who you really are, then they weren't
Yeah.
really real friends in the first place. But it's a difficult thing. I went through that as well. They're just so used to you being a certain way. Why are you being like this? I'm like, well, I'm actually standing up for myself now.
Mhm. And there's a huge part of grief in that, and I think that's something that's not often talked about. Talk about, like, being aligned to yourself, and it feels so empowering, and, like, take back your power, but on the flip side, while it feels very liberating to do that, you're also experiencing significant grief. Grief for maybe living the last 40 years of your life silencing yourself, or grief for the
Yeah.
loss of relationships, or grief for the things you wish you had said, and for not taking care of that younger version of yourself and honoring her and speaking up for her and advocating for her. So it comes with both. It's liberation, but also significant grief when you are taking your power back and really living in alignment with yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way, that you do sort of have to grieve for that loss or that time period that you spent trying to be someone that you weren't.
Absolutely.
And you can't get that time back, but you can only move forward.
Mhm.
So you do that. You help women do this.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do, and maybe some ways that women can tap into some tools, some techniques to, well, first of all, I think you have to be able to realize that this is
Mhm.
going on, right? So what are some warning signs or some ways that, I know for you, you had your wake up call, I had my wake up call, but
Mhm.
for listeners, what are some ways that they might be able to figure it out or pay attention and be like, wow, I am doing this. I didn't
Yeah.
realize. And then what are some steps that maybe people can take, and how do you help women?
Yeah, so some of the signs can be like, how much time do you spend by yourself? So if you do not spend any time by yourself, and
Mm,
I'm not saying like on the couch on your scrolling on your phone, like, can you
binging Netflix.
yes, like, can you literally just sit with yourself? Like, go sit outside with yourself, or does that feel very, like, cringy? Because if you can't even be with yourself and be at peace with yourself, that's usually a sign that you have been distancing yourself from yourself. You're disconnecting. And so that's a huge
Wow.
sign. So take an audit. How much time in a day, or maybe in the last year, have you actually spent with yourself, by yourself? And really, and then how does that feel? So if you took 5 minutes right now, what's going through your mind? And you may have a lot of, like, negative thoughts going through, ruminations, but can you just sit with yourself in that moment and then pay attention to what your internal dialogue is? Is it, I should be doing this? Are you full of shoulds? I should go do the dishes. I should go do the extra call. I should go do this, because the shoulds are, again, just more of that abandoning yourself. You're doing something that you think the external world needs of you rather than doing what you want to do. Or does your internal dialogue say, I want to? This feels so aligned. This is what I want to do. So listen to your dialogue. Is it the should or is it the want? And often, if you are abandoning yourself, you're full of shoulds, full of shoulds, because all that language is just projections of the outside world coming into you. So that's a big tool to bring awareness to it.
Okay, that's game changer for me because I don't think I ever spent any time alone when I was deep in, you know, misalignment and being in the wrong path and the wrong career,
Yeah.
sort of living the wrong life essentially. And I never spent any time with myself and I never spent any time reflecting, God forbid,
Yeah.
because it was too scary. It's too confronting. So it's much easier to look to the tangible externals and say, well, I have to do this and this and this and this. And I'm so
Mhm.
busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy.
Yeah.
I'm working so hard. I'm so tired. I'm so busy. I've got all these obligations. And that's a way of avoiding
Mhm.
really addressing any underlying stuff
Yeah.
that's bubbling below the surface that you haven't dealt with.
Exactly. And then you're literally just avoiding those moments with yourself. And it's like, if you don't want to be with yourself and you're not at peace with yourself, like, how are you showing up in the world?
That's
Like,
a red flag. Yeah.
yeah, like, that's the energy you're putting out in the world, and it's nothing like, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's me," like, do not shame yourself for that by any means. Just
Yeah.
give yourself some grace and have some curiosity about, like, "Oh my gosh, that's me." Like, "Okay, like, how can I start to change that?" Like, that's an opportunity. So when you see these things pop up in your life, it's an opportunity to adjust that and change. So you wanna bring the awareness to these things, because if you're not aware of it, you are just guaranteeing yourself to continue on with the same patterns you've always continued on with.
Wow. Okay. That's really helpful. And then let's say you're noticing these things like I don't want to be alone. What are some other tips or warning signs maybe that
Mhm.
women might be picking up who are listening?
Yeah. So the next thing is tune into your body. So what is your body telling you? So your body is going to be a huge communicator of how you're actually treating yourself, and respecting or not respecting yourself, and being loyal or not loyal to yourself. So your body will communicate at all times. And some of those subtle warning signs before, disease happens is often like, I'm so tense, I can't relax my shoulders. My shoulders are up by my ears. I'm getting headaches all the time. I sleep
Yep.
but I'm not rested. My jaw hurts, my feet are cramping all the time. I just want a foot massage or something to like help me with that. Like, it's this tension that we start to experience in our body. It could be the low back, just feeling always tight. It can be chronic illness. So like, you have a cold that has lasted 4 weeks and then you don't have it for maybe 2 and then it comes right back. So it's these
Mhm, mhm.
frequent colds, and it's these changes that you may see that things just aren't quite working as well as they used to. So you're
I call that
noticing.
the check engine light phenomenon
Yes,
that
totally.
we often as women, we ignore the check engine light. We keep driving. We don't have any gas in the tank and it's not sustainable. And yeah, I think that people don't realize the interplay between chronic stress hormones like cortisol
Mhm.
being elevated continuously for a long period of time and depressed immune system, muscle tension, muscle weakness, all of these things that are actually consequences of chronic simmering stress.
Absolutely, and then when we ignore them long enough, that's when things amplify. It's like a kid. If a kid's like, "Mommy, mommy," and you ignore them, they're not just gonna go away on their own, like, they're just gonna yell louder, and then they're gonna yell louder, they're gonna get in your face, and then this is when
Or next thing you know, they're not yelling, but the whole living room has been
just
painted in marker.
exactly, like, something's getting destroyed, but, like, that's yes, that's like what your body is just trying to communicate with you. But often what we do is like, we then turn it around on our body. It was like, oh, my body's broken. Or we start using the language of like, look, this, everything's falling apart. And we start languaging it as if our body is the enemy. And now think about your body like that you're listening. Your subconscious mind listens at every time. So it's going to say, okay, like this is just, that separation. I'm going to disconnect from that. Like, I'm just going to continue to yell louder. And now we have this whole process of like not recognizing that our body is our biggest advocate. It's not our enemy. It's just trying to tell you something and you're not listening.
Well, especially for those of us who, as a consequence
Mhm.
of severe chronic stress and this disconnection, also develop autoimmune disease.
Mhm.
So your body literally is the enemy, or you literally are
Yeah,
fighting with yourself.
100%.
Never thought of
Absolutely.
it that way.
Yeah.
Oh my
Absolutely, and that's
goodness.
that mind-body connection, and you cannot disconnect the 2, and if you're not protecting yourself and you're not honoring your own needs, your body will find a way to express that.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So you talk a lot also about something called subconscious reprogramming. Tell
Yeah.
us more about that.
Yeah, so our subconscious mind runs 95% of the processing that we experience each day, so and a lot of that
Whoa,
has
whoa, whoa. Stop the presses. Rewind. I think you gotta say that again because this
yeah.
is like major aha moment. Our subconscious mind
Mhm. Runs
runs
95% of what's going on.
95%.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You let's dig into this. This is huge. I don't think anyone listening knew that. I mean, myself included, I was a neurologist.
Yeah, and a lot of that has been programmed from ages from 0 to 8. So, we are programmed from being children based on belief systems or whatever we saw in our childhood, and that becomes the program we run on until we become aware of that. And so if you saw maybe you were 6 years old, you got an A on a test and you're like, "Good job, that's awesome. You got all this attention and praise." And then you came home with a D the next day. You're like, "What's wrong with you? Oh my gosh, like why did you screw up? You're not even doing what you're supposed to." So, as an adult, we might be like, "Okay, it's just a test, not a big deal." But when you're a 6-year-old and you're coming from the 6-year-old perspective, you may internalize that as when I perform, I'm good. When I don't perform, I'm bad, and I'm
Mhm,
going to carry that the rest of my life. So now when I become a professional, when I perform, I'm good. So I'm going to make sure I perform all the time because I don't want to feel bad. I hated feeling bad. And that's the
mm,
programming we carry. It just looks different as an adult, but it's always there. Or maybe when you were younger, you didn't clean your room and you got something, reprimanded, like, you never do this. You never do what you're supposed to. And then now you internalize that I'm not enough. Even though it's
mm,
just the room, as a child, you may say, I'm not enough. This clearly means I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough. And so now you grow up and you have to make sure the house is immaculate. You have to make sure that you are showing up for everybody's meeting and saying yes to everybody because you don't ever want to feel that feeling of not being enough. And
mm,
so this is the programming we carry from our childhood, but all of it is false beliefs. Does it really mean that if you don't perform, you're not a good person? Absolutely not. But we internalize it so much as our truth that we allow it to be the lens in which we see the world. And so part of the brain is that reticular activating system. So the reticular activating system will filter out all the noise of our world. So if we say, I'm not good enough, and that's the belief we carry, it's going to filter out everything that could possibly say that we are good enough. And we're only going to see the evidence of you're not good enough. See, you didn't quite get the raise you wanted. You didn't get that promotion. See, you're not good enough. It's going to find the evidence to make whatever your beliefs are true. And
confirmation bias.
absolutely.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
then this leads into rewiring your brain, right?
Mhm.
Which is the work that you do.
Yeah.
So tell us, as a neurologist, I'm very curious as to how one would go about rewiring one's brain. So,
Yeah.
yeah, tell us
So a
more about
lot of it
that.
is repetition. So then creating new patterns. So you recognize first the old patterns. So you start to get to know yourself. What are the things I'm always telling myself when something really bad happens? What's the first thought I have? And then you can start to uncover some of those patterns that you have. And then you want to reprogram that by giving it new inputs. So you want to have that repetition. But where the real key is that it got put in your brain when it got attached to an emotion. So when you were a child, there was some emotion that you got attached to that. So give the example of I'm not enough. You may have felt that guilt, that shame, that sadness. And so that anchors it in even harder. So in order to anchor in a new belief, we have to attach it to a new emotion of then bringing that into the system. So if you could visualize this experience of like you are just completely abundant, you are full, you are loved, and really anchor in that emotion to something that you visualize of like you gave this speech and it was just, everything was just wonderful, and you felt so proud of yourself, and there was so much love for yourself, and you really just visualize that, anchor in that emotion. That helps to reprogram the brain to attach that emotion to it and realize that that's your truth, that's your new programming. And so it doesn't happen overnight, but if you can do this over and over and over again, you reprogram everything that's going on within your brain, and then you start to release some of the old programs that have been running you for so long.
Wow. Oh my gosh. How do you think that nervous system regulation and this subconscious programming plays into women who are stuck in burnout cycles?
Yeah. So, big part of the nervous system regulation, the way I use it with my clients, is that I want to create a sense of safety within ourselves again. So, we often feel like we're not safe. And again, that can often come from programming where we didn't feel a sense of safety within us. Maybe we expressed an emotion and it got shut down. And so we're like, oh gosh, I'm not safe to feel the way I do. So, I'm just going to look outside myself for a sense of safety. So, we do that looking outside ourselves, but we don't create safety within ourselves. So, nervous system regulation is really bringing that fight, flight, freeze response down and then amplifying that parasympathetic response, the rest, digest, restore. That's that more of a sense of calm within your system. So, that allows you to feel more of a sense of peace within your system. When you are in a more regulated state with your nervous system, that allows your mind to be open to different concepts. So, that's a big piece, is that you want to use your body to allow yourself to feel safe enough to bring in new experiences. If you don't feel safe, you're going to shut down to it. So think about, you're out in the woods, there's a bear right there, and you have to either run, fight it, or freeze. And someone says, well, don't you think you should just think you're enough? Like, and you're gonna be like, there's a bear right here. I can't even process
Yeah,
anything.
that's not the time to learn new information
No,
or be flexible in your mindset. You're
exactly.
literally running for your life.
Yes, and it's not a bear usually in this modern society, but it could be the
Right.
email, it could be the boss demanding something of you, your husband saying, "Here, do this,"
We're
and yeah, your
attached to this
phone.
all the time. The
Yeah,
phone, the
and that's
emails, the
the bear.
alarm.
Yeah, and then we wonder why we are so frazzled, because we literally have this fear response or this heightened response all the time, and we don't even have a place where we can be calm and quiet and even allow anything new to come in because we're just trying to survive.
What is something that someone can do right now, if they're listening, to begin that journey to start regulating their nervous system and just bring down the temperature a bit?
Yeah.
Send the bear off into the woods so
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
can start that repair process and that healing process.
Mhm.
I know we hear about breathing and meditation and
Yeah.
visualization and affirmations and all these things, but what's one thing that you might recommend to folks listening today? They could try
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah, so something just simple, but it kind of combines both the mind and the body, is that I always start with like a physiological sigh. So that's when you breathe in your nose, take another extra sip of air, hold, and slowly exhale. And then you're going to do a few of those. So you're just going to really bring your system down. But then after you do a 3 or 4, I want you to just put your hands on your heart and you close your eyes. And I want you to visualize something you're grateful for. So it could literally be like the breeze that you felt on your cheek this morning. It could be watching your child go off on the bus. It could be the breakfast you had, or being able to sip hot coffee or tea on your porch. Like, it could be something so simple, or the fact that you just took that breath and you had 5 seconds to take a breath. So you just want to anchor into that. And then not only just say, okay, I'm grateful for that, you want to feel that. So, like, feel into that gratitude and allow it to really visualize that heart space opening up to that gratitude. And so that's something you can do at any moment. And that really just helps you bring a greater sense of calm into your system.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and it's so simple, it's so easy, and it is
Yeah.
something we can practice at any time. And I think people forget how important breathing is.
Hmm.
I think I would notice sometimes when I was working and I was very stressed about things that I was actually holding my breath. I
Absolutely.
would I would kind of be like this, and I realized, I haven't exhaled in a really long time. I haven't
Yeah.
actually let go of
Mhm.
all of this stress and tension, and breathing is one of those fascinating things that
Mhm.
we do it subconsciously. We do it automatically,
Yeah,
and yet we can also do it consciously. So it's
absolutely.
bringing that awareness to something that is subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
which is,
Yeah.
I think, kind of maybe a great metaphor for the whole process and what you do with the subconscious reprogramming. It's like we're taking things in our subconscious that we're not aware of, we're bringing them to the surface, we're creating awareness around them
Yeah.
so that we can learn to change and reprogram
Absolutely. Yeah.
ourselves.
We want to
Yeah.
get off that autopilot because the autopilot is just a continuation of our history.
Oh my goodness. So, yeah, I mean, final thoughts or final pieces of advice for women who like they know something has to change, but they feel they're just too exhausted to even begin. They're overwhelmed, they're burned out. They're like you where you were. They've got 3 jobs, they've got a baby, they're rebuilding their house. I mean,
Mhm.
where could someone like that start?
Mhm. Yeah, so for me, a big part of it is like I have to do everything. I have to overhaul my life. I thought all these things were true. So that's why that was a huge hindrance of like, how do I add, another 2 hours onto my day? Like, how do I do this? But what I realized that it didn't come by this big overhaul in my life. It became just these tiny little things I would start implementing. It was like reading 10 pages a day. That's it. Just start with the smallest thing you can do because you're just trying to get a foothold. And then everything opens up. Once you get that foothold and you realize, gosh, I feel like a little bit different than I did last week. I feel a little bit more open, a little free. Then you don't have to rely on willpower at that point. You don't have to force it, that you don't want to force it. You want to lean into it, allow it to flow. So if you give yourself an opportunity to just change the smallest thing, sit with it, see how you feel. If it feels like it's aligned with you, go with it and just add just a little bit more, even like 5 minutes to start out with in the morning and the evening, whatever you can do, just start with that. Start small and just trust that those little changes will make the difference. It does not have to be a complete life overhaul.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't I say you don't have to jump off the cliff without a parachute.
No.
Like I did. You don't have to, throw a grenade to your life. You can start making these small incremental shifts and over time they add up.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
they can result in really big changes. So if someone needs more help with all of this and they possibly need more support and they want to work with someone like you and they want to learn more about what you do with the subconscious reprogramming, rewiring your brain, and all of these things, where can they find you and how can folks connect with you?
Yeah, so you can connect me on all social media platforms under Dr. Kelly Kessler or on my website Optimal You, YOU, healthandwellness.com. And I have a community where I have a bunch of women who are experiencing the same thing. So we meet twice a month, and that's just been a really great opportunity for people to see that you're not alone in this journey.
Oh, fantastic. And we're going to put all of that in the show notes. And you also have a podcast,
Mhm.
the Rewiring Health podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And they can find that anywhere.
Yeah, it's Apple, Spotify, YouTube.
Wonderful. So, as always, if this episode spoke to you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend. I think this is a really good episode to share with a friend. And leave us a review. It really does help the show reach even more women who are ready to outsmart burnout. So, until next time, remember burnout isn't your destiny, it's your wake up call.